What's going on, guys? It's your boy Beats by Ash, back at it again with another banger of a video. And today we just got some really awesome news in the Magic the Gathering community, and so that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So I know a lot of people have been speculating about a potential ban list happening today on October 16th, and it turns out there will actually be no changes to Modern and as well Standard, which I personally am very happy to see because I'm in the works of building a standard deck to compete at the Chicago Open, and I was waiting to see what changes would happen before I made that purchase. But overall, I think that both formats are in a great place, so it's exciting to see that no changes were made in that area. And as well, the most important news is that we are breaching an end of an era. In this article we're about to go over, we're going to discuss one of the best changes to the way Magic the Gathering is played and sold going forward. In my opinion, something I'm very excited about, which is the removal of set boosters and draft boosters and the return of the single booster, but they're still keeping the collector boosters around for any of you whales out there. And I'm really excited to see this. They're transforming into something called a play booster, and we will talk about this a little bit more later, but it's going to be the same implications for in person as well as on Magic the Gathering Arena in terms of these play boosters. And I'm super excited to see this because after returning to the game after, 8 or 9 years, whenever I first got into Magic at 12 years old, my brother and me split a box of new Phyrexia, and I felt a lot of joy and excitement from, opening those packs and the potential to, get all of the cards that were available in that set. And after returning, I was a little bit let down when I got my brother another booster box and they had separated them into the draft as well as the set booster. And essentially the draft booster box was always like the OG one that you would originally buy throughout Magic's history, except they created a lot of exclusive cards and a lot of fun card styles that would be only available in these other two kinds of boosters, which are set boosters and collector boosters. And so the draft booster really just felt like a letdown because it's the same price as what you would have been paying back in the day plus inflation. But then you have these other two boosters, which are exponentially way more expensive, but also have all of the potential of value in that set that made it really fun to open up a booster box for the last couple decades. And that's something that made me feel less excited about opening packs. Because there's all these awesome things that they were advertising were coming out in this set, such as, reprints of old cards and super awesome new card styles for new cards and as well old cards that everyone was excited to see. And some of these cards were, relatively difficult for you to get your hands on before, this introduction of the set. And when they decided to lock those behind a more expensive booster box, it really just felt like, why am I buying a draft booster box? And as a store owner, you're really just putting a lot of eggs into one basket by trying to buy a decent amount of draft boosters. And in my opinion, it really just destroyed the draft community because draft has always been more fringe than constructed has been. But when they were all just one booster, the store owner only had to order one kind of product, and that could be multi-purpose. And so what I mean by this, where it hurt the stores and it hurt the draft community, is that, everybody knows that set boosters are the most sold type of booster. And so the store owner really has to speculate on, am I going to get enough people to show up for these drafts consistently? And a lot of times the answer was no. And so then those store owners would either order less draft boosters than they would of the other two booster types, or just none at all, which completely eradicated the potential to do a Friday Night Magic event where everybody got to come out and draft and just experience all the new things that are going on without having a high barrier to entry. And, when I was 12 years old, I used to have so much excitement when my brother would take me to the game store and we could sit down and pick new cards from these packs from a booster draft that we could add to our tabletop Magic collection. And really with the design of, those two new types of boosters, the collector and the set booster, they really removed a lot of that because in my community, we used to have 30 plus person drafts, every single week. And after returning to the game, it's hard to find anywhere within a 200-mile radius that even holds draft events. And if they do hold draft events, they're rotating what set they're drafting from in order to keep people interested and guarantee that they're going to be able to have enough people show up. And for me, I might be a little bit different, but I want to get good at the most recent set so that I can potentially become competitive and, try to do well in a bigger event, which always the bigger events for limited are going to be using the newest standard set. And when these stores that I have to travel a large distance to want to rotate what set they're playing from, I just don't feel very compelled or excited about traveling to those events, even though they're the only available ones. And that is just really sad to see. So with these new changes, I'm super excited to see what these implications hold. And I'm really hoping that this can add more people to the community, back in the limited community, and as well in the standard community, and hopefully help out the store owners in general. Now, there are a couple downsides to this new edition of this booster, and one of them is for the limited players that it's going to be a little bit higher most likely in order to enter a limited event, and that's because these new play boosters essentially combine both the set and the draft booster, and previously set boosters had a guaranteed foil card and a potential chance at what's called a booster fun kind of card, which is essentially just a higher paid whale version of some of the chase cards that you would like to see. And so those cards were not previously available in draft boosters at all. And that's one of the reasons why draft boosters were less incentivizing. And also the fact that in these collector boosters, since you were guaranteed a foil, it really depreciated the value of pulling a foil in a draft booster. So because of that, the new play boosters are going to cost a little bit more on average. The good news is the value is supposedly going to increase in terms of what you are getting because of those foils and the booster fun and, the wild card slot now being melded into this one kind of booster. It's going to bring a lot of good things for the community. Number one, store owners are not going to have to diversify their stock just to hold limited events. And that's really exciting. That's why I said that, I'm really hopeful that it's going to revive the community in terms of limited. And also, it feels better to just open one of those boosters. Now, it does suck that it's going to cost a little bit more because they're saying that these play boosters, in terms of a booster box, it's going to come with 36 packs, which was the same as a draft booster already, but you're also going to have to pay more because they said the price is going to be a little bit higher than what a set booster box was. And I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what the specific price of a set booster is. Let's go ahead and check that out real quick. Okay, so at the time of this recording, a set booster box for Wilds of Eldraine is around $120 on Amazon, and a draft booster is currently on sale for $105, normally $113. So we know that a play booster box is going to be over $120. And that does kind of suck for some of the OGs in the community where most of the way that you play is through just the cards you own. That's what's considered tabletop Magic, and it's a known fact that that is the most widely played format out of all ways to enjoy Magic. And I remember, saving up to buy a booster box, saving up to split a booster box with my brother, and I think back in the day it was around $90 to $100. Add inflation in there, and we saw it rise to like 110 in the past whenever it was still just one single type of booster box. So going over 120, I think a comfortable price to pay for this product is like 125. If you go up to like 130, 140, it's not going to feel very good because for a large portion of the card game community, you're doing this hobby because you don't have an insane amount of money. There's a small percentage of people who are considered whales where they just buy unlimited boxes, they buy unlimited collector booster boxes, which are already outrageously priced, and in my opinion, way out of the reach of the normal tabletop Magic player. And when you have to spend $140 potentially on the lowest possible buy of a booster box, that feels kind of bad because that is a lot of money to the average person. But overall, I think there are some, good factors about implementing these new changes. And even though the price increase is going to be coming, I'm excited to see it. So we're going to go ahead and briefly go over this article before I continue rambling anymore. All right, this article was put out by Mark Rosewater, one of the most well-known game designers in the Magic the Gathering community, on October 16th, which is today on a Monday. And essentially, we just go over the different reasons why this change is going to be happening. And we also talk about what the benefits are and what the potential implications are to the limited and to the standard format. So first off, going through the problems, just like I talked about before, set boosters eclipsed draft boosters. That just shows that Wizards of the Coast understands that draft boosters were well under-purchased compared to set boosters, and I cannot agree anymore. Like I said, a lot of the fun that was gathered from purchasing a draft booster box back in the day, or just a regular booster box, was kind of just removed with the set boosters and the collector boosters. And it's nice to know that they're actually noticing this as a problem, because this is one of the most irritating factors in the Magic the Gathering community when you are a returning player, in my opinion, and it kind of creates a lot of gatekeeping for those casual players because they do cost more and because you are getting a lower amount of value out of the draft booster boxes. So I am super excited to see that they noted that. And as well, it caused inventory problems for the stores. Wow. One of the first times I've ever seen Wizards of the Coast actually address the interest of the local game store, which is the heart and central of the entire Magic the Gathering community, of the entire card game community. And it did really screw over stores, because when you have to speculate on buying 3 different kinds of booster box and assuming how many of each box is going to be purchased in order to set yourself up with a good product strategy, it's just causing a lot of unneeded stress on the store owner, which there is already way too much of that. So that is good to hear. Also, it began the abandonment of draft boosters. Okay, that's basically just the same as number 1, because most people just did not enjoy opening them if they had a choice. Number 4, it caused confusion in the marketplace. 100%. If you're a parent buying a booster box for your child, for your niece, for your nephew, for a friend, and you see these 3 different kinds of booster boxes, and you are very clueless in the community, you're not going to know what is the difference between these, and you might purchase someone a draft booster instead of spending an additional $20, and then that person is not as happy as they could be with knowing that information beforehand. And I completely agree, that is a very big problem. Number 5, it makes some Magic boosters less desirable. I mean, 100%. That's basically just restating number 1, number 2. I mean, that's completely true. The fact that there are certain kinds of cards that are gate kept behind a specific style of booster box that costs more money is completely ludicrous. The card game community is already very expensive to enjoy on any level, and the fact that they were gatekeeping certain levels of enjoyment behind these paywalls was honestly disgusting, in my opinion. And now we're going to go over the issues. Number 1, there were not enough good cards. I mean, well, yeah, 100%. In a set booster, you have 12 playable cards, and so versus a draft booster, where if you're a person who is trying to get into tabletop Magic and you just want to split a booster box with your buddy, with your brother like me, and you buy the set booster because they're kind of forcing you to buy it for the enjoyment of opening the packs, well, now you're sacrificing how many cards you're getting to play with, which is also just a problem. And so I was never a fan of having 12 cards in a booster pack. It just does not make sense with how many cards are being printed in a set. Number two, the colors weren't balanced. For me, I don't really know how this is affected by the different kinds of boosters, so I'm not really going to go into that, but I guess if you're a designer, I could maybe see where you're coming from. I think that's more about how you're designing the set and not you putting certain cards behind paywalls because you chose to put those behind paywalls. It doesn't matter what color it is, that's lowering the fun for people. Number three, the ratios of rarities would have to shift. Well, I mean, no duh, yeah. Obviously, in the set booster, you had a higher chance to pull up to 4 rares or higher, whereas in a draft booster box, typically you're going to have 1 rare or mythic, and then I think if you got a card from the bonus sheet, that could be your second, but I think the most I've seen from a draft booster box, and to be fair, I haven't opened a lot of draft boosters since returning to the game, but back in the day, we used to get, sometimes I would get 2 mythics, 1 rare, or, 2 rares, 1 foil rare. That was always a possibility. But yeah, I definitely understand what they're saying with that problem. Because a lot of the commons that you would get in these draft booster box are just somewhat unplayable because they're really just specific to the limited set. Since they're putting the actual good boosters behind a paywall, you just get more filler cards, and that's also a big conundrum. So it is going to be exciting to see that you're going to be able to pull more higher rarity cards and get less fillers if you're just a casual player. Number 4, we would have to change how the sets were made. I mean, obviously you have to change how the sets are made. You're basically just screwing over the community and putting a limit on how much fun that each person can have by buying a draft booster box, something me and my brother have labeled as fun sharing. Now we're going to go into what actually a play booster entails in terms of the different slots. So number 1 through 6 is going to be all commons. Number 7 is a common from the list. So the list is something that essentially means it's like a reprint card, or it's something that makes the set more exciting. I think that the Enchanting Tales from Wilds of Eldraine is a part of what's called the list, from what I understand. So in the 7th slot, 7 out of 8 times it's going to be a 7th common, but there is a 12.5% chance for you to get a card from the list. So I mean, I guess that's kind of cool. Typically the list was used to reprint older cards, but now we're actually going to have the opportunity to mess around with what can be on that list. So typically that would be cards that would be not for standard specifically. That's why like the Enchanting Tales was mostly for commander players, and now they're saying that there is a chance that that slot is also going to be filled with something called a special guest, which will be implemented into the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but the play boosters will not be implemented just yet. But special guest, from what I understand, it's kind of a vague thing that we'll know more about when we get the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Essentially, it could be a reprint card from Standard as well, which is something that I'm super excited to see, because as a person who wants to be able to get into Standard and doesn't want there to be a high barrier to entry, there's a lot of cards that are problematic in that manner, one of them being Shoulder of the Apocalypse, which is currently about $80 at the time of this recording, and that card has seen a extremely high play rate since its release in Dominaria United, and having the opportunity to get more chances at getting these cards in Standard that are widely utilized and fairly said overpriced is going to be really healthy for the community if I'm interpreting what that slot actually is. Like I said, we will know more about that when Lost Caverns of Ixalan actually comes out. But there is one new change to this, is that in addition to the special guests, there will be 40 cards that are reprints without new art. And of those, 30 will be common or uncommon, and 10 will be rare or mythic. This is down from 300 from the previous iteration that the list had. And that's something I'm super excited about, because it doesn't matter that they're coming out with these reprints for Commander when the list is so gigantic. It relatively only reduced the price of those reprints by like $5 or $10, which is honestly kind of just deceiving to the community in a way, because you're hyping people up, making them think that some of these cards that they've always wanted that were out of their reach, they're going to have an ample opportunity to actually get access to those. But when it's out of 300 cards, and those cards are short printed, it doesn't really matter about the reprint. I mean, we can look at the reprint of Shoulder the Apocalypse in one of the most recent standard sets, and that version is still even more money than the original Shoulder It. And in my opinion, that was just extremely unneeded. So the fact that they're narrowing down the list, I hope that helps with short printing, because that's been an issue that I've noticed for some time since returning to the game. Now, slots 8 through 10 will be confirmed uncommons. Nothing going to be different there. And slot number 11 is always going to be a rare or mythic card. 6 out of 7 times it's going to be a rare, and 1 out of 7 times it will be a mythic. This has been the standard ratio for some time. Something that I definitely agree with, because when I started playing Magic the Gathering in like 2011, 2012, typically you only got like 2 mythics. Randomly you could get a third one maybe, but most recently I opened a draft booster box with my brother from March of the Machine, and we actually pulled 11 mythics. So to see that ratio increasing slightly over time is something that I'm definitely behind, because I don't want these chase mythics in standard when standard is supposed to be the cheaper entry point to getting new people into the game. You know, if you want to have expensive cards, put them in modern, or just make a higher rarity, more alternate art style of card for those chase cards. So if you're a collector, you can pay the extra bucks to get them. That helps Wizards, but you're not gatekeeping people behind these chase cards that are overtly expensive on the secondary market. Slot number 12 is going to be a land. There is a 20% chance of that to be a foil. Not really important. Slot number 13, non-foil wildcard slot. Now, a wildcard can essentially be any rarity, and it has the possibility of being a booster fun variant, and it will not be foil. And that is completely fine with me, because set boosters previously had 2 non-foil wildcards, and play boosters will only have 1. The important thing to note about this is that the booster fun slot is actually available in the lowest purchase level possible of a booster box, which brings some of that excitement about opening a box back to the game, which is the chase potential. You may not have the best chance at getting the best card in the set, and that's completely fine. But just having that idea in the back of your mind that there's a 1 in a million chance you could get something amazing, it really just brightens open your mind, and it just creates a lot of enjoyment, because a lot of the fun in opening booster boxes is that chase, that potential to get something amazing to make your day. And I'm super excited to remove this stupid gatekeeping. Number 14 will be a traditional foil card, foil wild card, which means that it can be anything from common to mythic. And I'm excited that they're adding this in, because, you know, back in the day, you didn't have a guaranteed chance at getting a foil. And if you're a person like me who comes from Yu-Gi-Oh, where almost every card in your deck is a foil art style of your choice, and some of the regular foils are not that much at all, you know, compared to in Magic back in the day, if you opened a booster box of Dark Ascension and you had like a 1 in 200 chance of getting a foil Sorin Markov, you know, that was maybe like $100. And it was just a foil version of the regular card. And a lot of people have issues about these foils, because traditional foils have something called a potential Pringling effect, where it might just not be playable because of the potential chance of a foil being warped. And so I never saw the need for foils to be exponentially higher than normal cards. And the fact that they're guaranteeing you a foil in the minimum purchase required to get a booster box is just a really nice touch. It adds back some more of that fun and enjoyment that I've referenced throughout this video. And it also makes you feel like you're getting more value for that price increase. So overall, a great change. Now, slot number 15 is a non-playable card. So that can be a token, an ad that you're going to throw in the trash, or a double-sided card. There are different ratios of getting those: 65% chance to get a token, 30% chance to get an art card, 5% chance to get an art card with a signature. Honestly, no one really cares about art cards and art cards with a signature. That is just something that they do to make you feel like you actually got something in a slot that realistically has no value. To wrap it all up, the difference from set boosters is that now you get 2 more playable cards, no connected commons or uncommons. You're going to get 1 less non-foil wild card, 1 less non-playable object, which no one cared about getting a second non-playable object. It's fucking non-playable. And then 1 in 3, an opportunity of getting an art card where you always had an art card in a set booster. Another thing people don't care about. The differences from a draft booster, what we're here all to see, is that the potential to open up 4 rares or mythics is now possible. Thank you. Thank you so much for returning the fun that I once had to this game into my hands. Amazing. You're going to get 1 less playable card because now you're getting 14 playable cards and 1 non-playable, which doesn't really matter. They said they did some in-depth testing and said that 14 playable cards is the perfect number for playing limited in a pack, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't think anyone else will. You're going to get 3 less commons, which is completely fine. I'm hoping that that makes the draft experience better, but only time will tell because, you know, a lot of people have caveats in these recent booster sets with drafting because a lot of the commons are just extremely unplayable and completely filler, and it's definitely going to make a lot of people who are just a tabletop Magic player a lot more happy because when you're just opening up the packs and playing with your friend and you're not going by any ban list, then you're going to have an overall more fun experience, a higher power level experience. You're going to get 1 more non-foil wild card and 1 more foil wild card in this pack. Okay, amazing. That's what we wanted to see. And then you have an 1 in 8 opportunity of getting a card from the list that normally did not appear in draft boosters. Okay, thank you. At least I have the potential chance to convince myself in the back of my mind that I could make money back from this purchase. That's always a nice thing to see. Whereas nowadays, people have really strayed away from purchasing booster boxes and sealed product in general because they make it very clear that if you buy a draft booster box, you have a 0% chance to actually make your money back. And then roughly 1 in 3 opportunity of an art card that didn't appear in draft boosters. Okay, still no one gives a fuck about that. I'm not trying to be mean, but no one really cared. Now, when can we expect these boosters to be implemented? This will premiere in Murders at Karlov Manor, which is essentially 3 sets from now after the release of Lost Caverns at the beginning of next month, and as well Ravnica Remastered. But we are testing out the slot of the special guest in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, so that will be exciting to see what that entails. And these booster boxes can be 36 packs, so the exact same of what a draft booster box was. Now, there are some concerns. They note that people may ask, are drafts going to be less fun? Because, you know, you assume that since there's 4 potential opportunities to get a rare or mythic in a pack, that there's going to be more bombs included in these sets. And they say that that's not going to be an issue. I am skeptical for sure because, you know, they're saying that they're changing the design to make that be less of a concern. But the only way I could see them fixing that problem is one of 2 things. Number 1, common and uncommon cards would contain more powerful removal in order to answer these bombs. Or number 2, they're basically going back on what the purpose of removing those common cards was, to remove the filler, because you're creating a lot of rares and mythics that are also filler so that you're reducing the amount of bombs that are in a set, but you're also reducing the amount of fun a person can have. So if that's the case, I don't think it really, you know, helps to try to create the experience that I think their idea was with this set, but only time will tell. The last thing that they talk about is why there's only 14 cards, which I explained. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't think it really matters to a lot of people. But if you have a concern with there only being 14 playable cards in a pack in terms of draft, make sure to let me know down below in the comments, because I'm interested to see what some people's thought process on this is. And then limited events will cost slightly more, which it does kind of suck, but at the end of the day, inflation's going to do what inflation does. And I'm just excited to see that there's a good chance more people will be inclined to enter the limited Magic community, which is my favorite way to play Magic and a lot of people's favorite way to play. And we'll just have to see how that goes. And hopefully the price isn't too steep. I know for a long time it's been $12 to draft. And, you know, I think that's a great price, but $14, I think that's completely fair. $15, it's okay. I mean, I understand, but anything above $15, I think is just a little bit too much money to pay for a standard set where you're not supposed to have the greatest potential to make your money back compared to like a modern or commander based set. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys think is a good price for these limited events, because I definitely have an idea of where I'm at, but I'm sure everybody has their own opinion. That's going to be all for our discussion today. Thank you so much for getting this far in the video. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to smash the like button, turn post notifications on, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another banger. And as always, if it's not the goo, it's got to go. Peace.
Is that indigo?